Hey, we're back.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Boba
I have
Joe
no
Show.
idea what we're talking about. My memory's fucked,
Yeah,
so I put on the screen to remind myself.
no teasers this week, folks.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, look, we had such a great time in Miami last week, uh, chatting about Miami Vice. So
Oh
we
yeah.
thought we'd stick
Get some
around for
yayo.
some yayo. Exactly. Got to rush to that yayo.
For sure.
But yeah, it's 1983's Scarface.
Not to be
Classic.
confused with the
Classic.
old black and white Scarface, which was based on Capone.
Ain't no Capone here.
But he does have a slight scar on his face to actually reference that original film where it borrows the title.
Where did he get that scar, I wonder? Was it eating
I
pineapple?
Before we kick off and get into this classic and very beautiful movie, as far as how it's shot in the beautiful city and surrounding ocean of Miami, we did have a fan leave us a little voice message this week, so I'll just play a bit of that.
All right, fools, listen up. This here Scarface movie is a motherfucking stone cold classic. If you don't watch it, then you ought not to live. Watch this motherfucking movie if you know what is good for you. And check out next week's Boba Joe show where those fools are talking about Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Now, that is a fucking video game, son.
But yeah, that's a teaser of what's happening next week as well. We'll be in Miami again.
And I can't argue with Sam L there. That is,
Oh no, it's quite a surprise that he left that message for us. Then no previous contact, and out of the blue, just left that message.
yeah, look, these celebrities they reach out to the network, and then the network relays the message to us.
That's
so
it.
that's how it works.
They don't even know who we are. They just leave these messages.
What a nice skyline we have here.
Yeah, it's beautiful, very scenic.
Definitely someplace I wouldn't be afraid to visit as a tourist. I definitely wouldn't be worried about drug crime or anything like that.
I think I'd be okay now, maybe, but back in the 80s, no way, man. I don't want to go there. I'm assuming it's gotten slightly better since then.
Well, you'd hope it's at least slightly better.
At least slightly better. I'm sure there's probably districts and neighborhoods you still want to stay out of, but I'm sure there's places you can go. If you're minding your own business, you'll be fine. Mostly.
Fashion was better, though, I think, back here in good old 1983.
I love
these
those
white
colors
collar
too.
shirts.
Seeing that the old sunrises and sunsets next to the ocean is absolutely gorgeous, of course. If we're going to Miami, we want to get some human rights. Some of those human rights.
Oh, my human
Forget
rights,
dinosaurs. Stuff their rights. These rights are for humans, not for what about dinosaurs or other nonsense.
Yeah, Dirty
watch
Larry
out for sequels too. Yeah, the Dead Fools. Watch out for those sequels.
Can't wait. Can't wait. We should do a Dirty Larry anthology someday.
Yeah, I was watching Dirty Larry 3 today, actually. Yeah. That's just a little like promo image they had like back then. I think it was like in a magazine or whatever.
Pretty cool. Of course, directed by
actual
Brian De Palma.
Yeah.
So I suppose, look, some people may not have actually watched the movie, so we will do our usual kind of rundown of what's going down and what we're all about here. I'm just going to apologize in advance if the odd bad Cuban accent impression slips out. It's not anything. I'm not trying to make fun of Cubans or anything, but it's just that there's some pretty distinguishable and memorable kind of lines in this movie, and I can't help but try and mimic the accent and delivery quite poorly as well. So
Yeah,
forgive me in advance.
it's a serious movie about crime, so it is a little bit cartoonish, and Al Pacino, has kind of fun with the over the top accent and mannerisms that Al Pacino way. And if you are going to get your cigars, use Cubans. Don't do the Cosmo Kramer and get Dominicans rolling your cigars. That's very important.
Yeah, you need genuine, authentic Cubans if you're going down that road. And so speaking of authentic Cubans, which this film may or may not represent, we'll get to that as well. So look, the backdrop to this whole story is that in the 1980s, Castro essentially sent a ton of people across the bay, refugees mainly, but as kind of shown in this movie, there's a a large kind of crime or criminal element included in these numbers of people that came over from Cuba. And as it says specifically in the kind of opening text of this movie, Castro sent the dregs of his prisons over, essentially to Miami. So it's against this backdrop of all these Cubans coming in, whether they be genuine refugees or otherwise, that the story of this Scarface movie is actually taking place.
So a lot of people would just dump on a city. Like, that's a lot of people.
Oh yeah. And look, we see kind of examples of it these days in numerous parts of the world. I won't go into anything specific, but I'm sure we can all think of real life examples. So look, it's Al Pacino. It's directed by Brian De Palma, who's a great director. I'm sure this will be the first of a few of his movies we're going to be chatting about, on the show at some point. So we're introduced to the main character, Antonio Montana, and he's just come off the boat. He's in what appears to be like an immigration center, and he's getting more or less interrogated by the cops here. They're asking him about his background. Has he been involved in any crime? What's his story? And he's just
Turning library books on time.
Yeah, he's just telling them, look, I've no living relatives. My family's dead. I used to be in the army, and one of the cops kind of notices that he has a tattoo on his hand, and he's like, what's the deal with the tattoo? And Tony's like, oh, it's just an old tattoo representing my sweetheart. And the cop's like, no, this is bullshit. I've seen this tattoo like 50 times already. It's some type of like hitman assassin mark. And
Yeah, it's either like
he's
some
given
kind of military unit or a gag, or it's one of those kind of ones.
Yeah, it's definitely not some like love sweetheart tattoo. That's for sure. And of course, we get the famous line where the cop kind of points to Tony's scar, and he's like, "How'd you get that scar, tough guy? Eating pussy?" And Tony's all like, "How you get a scar like this eating pussy, man?" But if you're watching the TV version of this movie, that line would be, "How'd you get that scar, tough guy? Eating pineapple?" So whatever version of the movie you want
That's
to
something
watch,
of Yippee-Ki, Mr. Falcon.
So yeah, this immigration cop, he's having none of it. He thinks Tony's full of shit, and he's not buying his sob story at all. And he orders he be placed on the bus going to Freedom Town, and Freedom Town is a quite ironically named internment camp that sits underneath a highway. Yeah, yeah. Freedom Town. What a name. What a name. But yeah, we also get to meet Tony's best friend Manny, who's on the same bus, going to Freedom Town. They know each other from their previous life in Cuba, and Tony's asking Manny how he got along in his interview, and Manny's like, oh, well, I told them what you told me to tell them. I told them that I worked in sanitation. And Tony's like, I didn't tell you to tell them you worked in sanitation. I told you to
That's like
tell them
saying you work for the
you're in a
mob.
sanitarium. I told you to
It's like,
tell
oh, you're
them you're in a
recycling and
sanitarium.
cleaning up and sanitation, and yeah, it's just like you work for the mob.
So yeah, it's a nice little funny interplay between the two before
And there's
we're
a real
whisked
good
off to Freedom Town.
camaraderie with his buddy and those actors too that plays out very well through this film. That they have a genuine friendship, regardless of the everyday activities and illegal activities they get up to.
Definitely. And this could have been a very different casting. I think it was originally John Travolta that was in line to be
Oh
playing
my
the role of
god!
Manny. So luckily he did not take the role. So we
Oh,
got
Danny
a
Zuko.
Stephen Baylor instead. Yeah, yeah.
Well, at least you'd have the white suit, I guess. You could get away with that in Miami, but the rest of it, and Saturday Night Fevers. I mean, I like John Travolta as an actor, but I mean, as a person, I don't know. But as an actor, I do like his films. But he would have been fucking awful in this film.
Yeah. I just can't. Yeah, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much. No, I love Manny just how he is. So yeah, we're whisked off to Freedom Town, which look, it's essentially it's a refugee camp sitting
Yeah,
underneath
Shantytown.
a highway, a freeway. Yeah, shanty town, tent city, whatever you want to call it. It's a lot of people crammed into a small space in the heat.
Yeah, and we do
And
see in the text thing there that 1 month later, like it's still there because they've had this 125,000 people dump there, and a month later, they haven't. The city and the state hasn't sorted out because it's so much to figure out what the hell do you do with all these people. We're going to house them and feed them and clothe them and find them jobs, and it's a hell of a problem.
yeah, and for some of them, depending on what their situation is, there might be not any chance to get out of this camp, or at least get out of it in any way
Yeah,
that you're going to have a decent life. Like I definitely get the impression with Tony and Manny and the rest of their crew that have kind of nearly already been rumbled as being kind of part of some type of Cuban hit squad. You can't imagine they're
yeah,
ever going to be seeing the outside of this camp as far as they're concerned. But we got a moment where Manny calls Tony aside and he says he's made a connection on the outside who's going to be able to pretty much get them their freedom to go get citizenship and go and just live and work outside of the camp. The only catch is that they have to do a hit. And the hit is on this guy, Ravanga, who supposedly was one of Castro's top men during the early days of the regime, but now he's on the outs with him. So he's been sent across the water on the boat. He's been kicked out of the country essentially. But
hmm
this guy, he's made a lot of enemies because while he was in power, he apparently tortured and killed a lot of people. And the relative of one of the people he's killed and tortured knows now that he's in the States, and he wants somebody to whack him while he's in this camp. So Manny and Tony take on the job of getting this guy. So at one point we see there's a text bit thrown up on the screen here. There's a big riot. There's just lots of
And this is like the
chaos
real.
going on.
They used some real footage in the film was intercut with the actors and that. They use like some real footage as well.
Yeah, it's actually it's really well filmed, and like you said, yeah, there's actual real life documented footage spliced in with the movie stuff. And it's just chaos. There's tents being burnt, everybody's smashing the shit out of everything. And we
It's
see
so
this dude
scary, man,
Revenga.
watching what's going on in the scene. It's a very realistic riot. Like no matter where you are, you're not safe. It's just chaos.
That's right. And this dude Revenga, he was obviously probably already a little bit paranoid, knowing that he was a marked man as one of Castro's former boys. So he's, trying to shoot and jive and sneak his way out of this tent that's been ransacked and trashed. And all of a sudden Manny spots him and he's like, Ravanga, and he flashes a knife at him. So the guy gets freaked out and he goes to leg it out. But just as he makes it outside the door, Tony's waiting for him and stabs him right in the gut. And yeah, that's the end of poor Ravanga. He lies there bleeding out on the ground while the
Yeah, it's
riot
really graphic.
just continues. Really graphic. And he's just lying there bleeding and the whole riot's just continuing on around him, like nobody's kind of taking any notice of this guy who's just been killed. And yeah, and that's how Tony and Manny managed to get sprung and get to the
Mm.
outside
They
to
did manage
do
to
the
play
hit.
some basketball as well, so it just let off some
They
steam
do.
before the old execution.
They do, and it should be mentioned as well, I suppose, during those little basketball moments, is we do see another couple of the guys who are in their crew. There's like Chi and Angel Fernandez are also in the background there, and we'll see them later on as well as kind of friends of Tony. I guess they were probably ancillary components to doing the hit on
Yeah.
Ravanga as well, because we see them also getting sprung. So good times ahead, or so we're led to believe.
So the next scene comes up after that. We see Tony Montana working at this kind of like takeaway joint. And up the top, it's got Comidas Latinos, like, so it's saying like Latino food where they're cooking up takeaway stuff and the, short order cook sort of thing. And also, I love the sort of production and layering of stuff in the images here. Like you see all the cups and the plates and everything's in there. It's like it's real practical, real world. It doesn't feel like we're on a fucking Pinewood Studios set. It's like we're really in this little cafe takeaway joint, and across the street is like some popular nightclub with like kind of wealthy people coming in the fancy cars and the fancy suits. And these guys are sitting there like cooking up food, but they're looking over jealous of these guys that are coming and going from these clubs across the street. These guys are players. They're somebody, we want to be somebody in this town rather than nobodies. And you can feel it's real palpable sense of like they feel like we're entitled and we're here and we want to be part of all this stuff that's going on in this city.
Yeah, and as Tony says, he didn't come to this country just to break his fucking back. Working as a dishwasher, and yeah, he's getting pretty pissed off with the whole situation, but it's okay because Manny, once again, he's made a connection with someone, an associate of actually the same person that they did the hit on Ravanga for, has a little job for them. So they during their break at the diner, they go across the street and they meet Omar Suarez, who's played by F. Murray Abraham, and he's this really kind of smarmy Cuban gangster guy. And he's like, "Look, I'm going to give you $500 each, and you're going to go pick up this yayo, blah blah blah." And Tony's like, "Well, no, fuck you. Like, we're not going to risk our lives for $500. You're asking us to go do this thing for you. We're not going to do it for at least, when he says something like, 1,500 or something like that." So the guy's like, all right. So he gives them some instructions and tells them, to go pick up some buy money, and he's going to give them an address to go meet these Colombians to go get some yayo.
Bunch of
And
really nice guys in that meeting.
oh yeah, they did end up meeting some really pleasant people on foot of this deal. But I suppose, yeah, look, it's our first kind of introduction to Omar, and you can just tell straight away that like him and Tony do not like each other. They just rub each other the wrong way almost immediately. And like even before he kind of drives off, he flicks his toothpick at Tony, like in a really kind of dismissive kind of manner, like, so. But yeah, so they get this job, and they quit their day job serving food. They just kind of walk out in their boss and tell them to go
that's
get
good
fucked.
food, man, because Latino food's like there's different kinds of traditional foods, but the burrito kind of thing mixed up with all the nice flavors and stuff in there, like Mexican style, or that, like, they've got a bunch of great foods there. And I'm like, I know it's a serious movie about crimes and stuff, but I want to go up and order something to eat there. And I know it's going to have good food.
Yeah, I bet you it's all delicious stuff.
And awesome production value too, just all the signage and all that. You can see up the very top right, that's definitely like a painting showing that's not actually the city. That's clearly a painting. But the rest of it, you can see it's like a shop front and the signage that, they've made all these signs. I love all the set dressing shit here. It's like awesome. And the same interiors here. Get all the cups. These, they're greasy and dirty looking they'll be cooking the food. And it's, and, if you've ever been in any kind of kitchen, like behind the scenes in any kind of kitchen, it feels and looks like this. It's awesome. But this is where they get sent to, this CAALLLL hotel, which is like the ocean front, like the big famous strip in Miami that runs up along the whole coast, where it has all the Art Deco colors and such. And at night time, it has all the cool neon that turns on and lights up and looks amazing. But they get sent here, and they meet some really fantastic, friendly guys who just want to be good friends with them.
They sure do. Well, I suppose, yeah. So we get to see the four lads are in the car. So it's Tony, it's Manny, it's Chi-Chi, and it's Angel Fernandez. Angel Fernandez, who I think just look very similar to the wrestler Tito Santana for some reason. I just always
Yeah.
kind of find
You're
two
not
of them
wrong.
are quite similar looking. So the plan is that Manny and Chi-Chi are going to wait in the car. They're going to keep watch. Tony and Angel are going to go upstairs and they're going to do the deal. So Tony says to Manny, look, the money stays in the car and it doesn't leave the car until you see me coming out to signal you to come in. And also, if I'm not back in 15 minutes, something's definitely going wrong. So, Tony and Angel, they go up, knock on the door. This complete sleaze bag looking Colombian dude opens the door and invites them in. Tony's like, look, is it okay? My guy's just going to wait outside and just keep an eye on things. The guy's like, yeah, that's fine. Brings them in. There's a lot of kind of bullshit where Tony's like, you got the stuff? And the guy's like, well, yeah, I got the stuff, but I don't have it here. Do you have the money? And Tony's like, yeah, well, I have the money, but I don't have it with me. Oh, so there's like clearly two guys don't trust each other. Straight away you can kind of see this is starting to go a little bit sideways. And the whole time there's just this woman like lying on the bed who's not saying anything. I think her name is Martha. She's introduced as, and Tony, he's about to get pissed off and just more or less tell the guy to go fuck himself when all of a sudden guy comes up behind Angel on the porch, puts a gun to his head, brings him in. Tony gets a gun put to his head. He gets disarmed. And we get like our first really, really violent moment, and probably the most violent moment in the entire movie, where
yeah, it really comes out of nowhere. Because you think it's just they're going to do a deal or it's going to go bad, but then the guy's like stringing people up and handcuffing them into the shower recess and pulls out a fucking chainsaw. It's like, what the hell's going on?
Pulls out a chainsaw. Angel chained up. He pulls the chainsaw to him and basically says, "Look, Tony, you better tell me where that money is, or your friend's going to get it." Tony still won't talk, so the guy does what he says he's going to do, and he literally chainsaws up his friend. Really bad, really bad.
And it's like real cartel sort of shit.
That's right. Oh, total cartel shit, because he kills him. He actually does kill him pretty quickly with the chainsaw, in terms of like they literally like drive it into his head. But afterwards, he literally starts saying things. Right, now we're going to do the arm. Now we're going to do the leg. Like he's literally hacking up the body in front of Tony. Like it's real kind of terror tactics in terms of that type
and
of
Tony's
cartel.
next.
Like,
He's not fucking around. He's going to cut him up next.
Oh yeah, big time, big time. But thankfully, Manny, who up to this point, who had been distracted talking to a beautiful woman on the street, he
one
finally
of those
looked up.
Miami Vice beach babes.
Yeah, there are plenty of beach babes in this movie. I'll say that much. But yeah, he notices that Angel's no longer on the porch, and so something must be wrong. And thankfully, just as Tony's about to get sliced and diced with the chainsaw, Manny and Chi-Chi make the save. They bust in. Manny comes in with a machine gun and just starts spraying. Chi-Chi's there. There's lots of gunshots going off. Manny actually gets shot in the ribs. He gets injured there.
Even when Manny's like machine gunning these guys, the guy with the chainsaw who's already killed Tony's friend doesn't stop trying to kill Tony. He's still like swinging at him with the chainsaw, and he just misses and gets shot.
It's such a crazy and intense moment because, yeah, he's swinging that chainsaw. He also gets shot himself, and as he's wounded, he uses the chainsaw to cut through the like doorway and then cut through a window into the apartment. And like he is fucked up, man, because he just takes quite a tumble through the window after he chainsaws it open, and you can actually see when he hits the ground, the chainsaw just flops beside him. Like it's such a hit he takes, and then of course Tony chases him down onto the street and just blows him away right there and then. It's a great moment, but yeah, just a really, really like this whole scene maybe goes on for about 4 or 5 minutes, but it's just the most fucking intense, violent shit you're ever going to see in a movie.
And all the neighbors and people on the street are completely freaked out. Like, what the hell is going on? There's gunshots and chainsaw sounds, and a guy running out into the street trying to run away, and someone else chases them out and guns them down. It's so fucking over the top and just in your face, brutal, crazy shit.
But on top of all this, in all this chaos, Tony still had the kind of whereabouts to tell Chi-Chi, look, make sure you bring the yayo, because the guy actually did have the coke in the flat, so they were able to grab that. And plus, he still has the buy money because the deal never went ahead. So he calls up Omar on the phone. He says, look, there was a bunch of cowboys. The deal's gone sideways. So Omar's like, great. Well, look, you have the product and you have the money, so just drop it off to me and that'll be fine. And Tony's like, no, fuck you. I want to meet the big boss. I want to meet Frank, the guy who's supplying the money, and I'll give him the money and the product. So this is how Tony really gets his foot in the door, so to speak, because he's brought by Omar to meet Frank. He's introduced to Frank. Frank really likes him. He gives him the dope and the money back as a kind of tribute to him. And Frank just thinks Tony and Manny are two great guys. He wants to take them out in the town. He also introduces them to his wife, Elvira, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who's looking great in this movie. Batman Returns is probably my favorite Michelle Pfeiffer movie for how she looks. But yeah, this is a close second. But yeah, so introduced to Elvira, and he takes them out to the Babylon Club. It's where Frank likes to hang out and drink and talk business, and we got lots of kind of bonding and bravado between Frank and Tony, and Frank's trying to give Tony all the advice, and he's like, rule number 1, never underestimate the other guy's greed. And then Elvira kind of cuts him off because she's obviously heard the speech 1,000 times. He's like, rule number 2, don't get high on your own supply. And because she's obviously just, bored listening to him tell these. This is the probably type of situation unfolds every few months where Frank has some new young thug working for him and brings him out to show off and give him all this advice. So, but anyway, Frank, he's really getting on well with Tony, and you can tell that Omar is looking at this and he just doesn't like Tony at all. He really doesn't want anything to do with him, but Frank really does like him, and he's even like, hey, look, go out and dance with my wife there. She just wants to dance. Go dance. So yeah, that's not going to turn out bad at all. So yeah, Tony goes out on the dance floor and starts smoozing with Elvira, asking her where she's from, and
this business.
Yeah, a lot of elbow movements in these dances, and he's all like, he's really trying to put the moves on her, which is really fucking stupid thing to do because his new boss is literally just sitting across the way watching him. And but she's having none of it. Like she's just trying to like dismiss him, and she even outright accuses him of being part of the Cuban crime wave and coming off a banana boat, which really insults him. And
No,
he gives her that line. It's like, you have that look like you haven't been fucked in a year, and she gets really angry. So they don't exactly hit it off straight away. But
but
on
where
the
there is an
drive home
uneasy
later,
tension where she's this like stereotypical gangster mole who's like clearly bored of the asshole partner who's just like doing deals and things, and probably other than giving her money and fancy clothes, probably doesn't do a whole hell of a lot for her.
yeah. But Tony, they're driving out, and him and Manny are having a chat about how the night went, and he just more or less says to Manny, look, I like that woman Elvira, I want to get with her more or less. And Manny's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, that's the boss's daughter. And Tony's like, more or less, well, fuck the boss, he's soft. So even back in these early kind of moments, we're still seeing, Tony, he just always wants more. Like, he's never satisfied
Yeah,
with kind of what he has already, even though he's literally just been introduced to Frank that night. He's already kind of thinking ahead to he's just taking his woman and doing whatever it takes. He's quite the man.
so the next scene reminds me of the Miami Vice pilot where the guy gets out of the courtroom scene and then gets assassinated in public. It's like that same kind of cafe outdoors.
Yes, it's definitely a very similar setting. So yeah, so we're 3 months later, and Tony and Manny have clearly been enjoying the benefits and the leisures of living in Miami. And
They got a nice car, they got nice clothes.
yeah, they got a nice Cadillac that Razor Ramon would be proud of with its tiger stripe
Or maybe
upholstered
Eddie
seats.
Guerrero probably appreciate the car.
And so Manny and Tony, they're having a chat about, just how life is going and the future and all that. And Tony gives us the whole big spiel about, first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the woman. Um, they're sent round to pick up Elvira, but Frank's going to be late because he's been delayed playing a game of golf. So Tony just decides to take Elvira out for the day, essentially, because when they go to pick her up, she makes a quip about, the car being really tacky and she wouldn't want to be caught dead in it
It's the
because it
bloody
looks
zebra
horrible.
print.
So Tony's like, okay, so they go car shopping, and he's, looking at nice sports cars and stuff. And of course he's flirting with her the whole time. He even tries to kiss her when they get back to the car later on, and she's like trying to push him off and stuff, but like he puts on her hat and he's kind of making her laugh and that. And you can see he's just
It's
really,
fairly charming in that scene.
yeah, he's trying hard definitely to put the charm on her. But we also get to see now, I suppose, the other side of Tony's life, because he goes round to visit his mother and his sister, who are kind of living in this wee house in the outskirts of town. And his sister is absolutely delighted to see her big brother. Like, she's really just excited and happy that he's in the country and they've been reunited, whereas his mother just absolutely hates him. She's like, "You're a
Yeah.
bum." He tries to give
Yep.
her money, and she's like, "Who did you kill for this money? I know you're not working in a real job." And he's like, "Oh no, I'm actually working for like a trade union and stuff." And she's like, "No, no, no, you're lying." Like, she just sees through all. She's obviously heard all this bullshit like a million times and knows exactly the type of guy he is. But his sister Gina is just so enamored and unhappy with him to be back, that she
I
kind
do,
of gives out to her mother and like chastises her for being mean to Tony.
and we do like it is kind of heartwarming. I mean, the mother's not happy, but it's kind of heartwarming seeing the scene with his sister because it seems very genuine that they care for each other. But that, as we see as it goes on, just goes pear shaped and is very demented as we go on to the film.
Yeah, he has.
The
he's more than fond of his sister, you might say. It
Oh yeah,
appears later on.
we'll get to
I
that.
think though, his mother though is probably really the only genuine kind of fully good guy character in the movie.
Yeah,
Really, like she's just
yeah,
this
true.
hard working lady, kind of single mother. She's raised her daughter on her own. She's been working hard, and she really just does not like agree with or abide by her son's lifestyle and being in a life of crime, and just she just totally rejects that whole way of life.
Mm.
And really, I don't know about you, but like I can't really think of any other character in the movie that is just like a straight up good person like that. Nearly everybody in the movie, even every cop, every lawyer, anybody in this movie always has like at least a little bit of bad guy in them, whereas she just seems
Yeah,
like
they're all
100%
part of the
pure.
trade, all part of the drug trade.
But yeah, she's like, look, I don't really want to see you around here. Don't call to the house anymore. So Tony kind of gets ejected, but Gina's like, oh no, don't worry, I still love you and you can call around anytime. And of course, Manny's sitting in the car waiting for Tony, and he makes a remark to Tony. He's like, wow, is that your sister? She's beautiful. And Tony just totally snaps. He's like, don't
Yeah,
you ever look at her. She's not for you. And that's like the very first kind of telltale sign that Tony has quite an interesting opinion, relationship, whatever you want, whatever word you want to
obsession.
use to describe it. Yeah, he's got a weird thing going on with his sister, that's for sure. But
Yeah,
things are
these
about
are
to get
the
pretty spicy now though, because we're about
off to
to
Bolivia.
switch location. We're off to Bolivia. We're off to Bolivia. We're off to talk to Mr.
We're
Sosa,
gonna
my
see
favorite character.
some of the basically we're seeing like a drug farm slash factory where this guy's got everything organized to be as efficient as possible, as workers and such, and living in very stunning location, of course, in South America. And they have their sort of meeting and talk about business and this and that. And
That's that's a great shot you just had there
yeah,
of them eating dinner. We will take note of the man wearing sunglasses in the background because we will see him later on as well. Quite ominously.
we,
I think that's brilliant as
we looks
well that he
friendly.
just happens to be there. Yeah, the Terminator.
Uh, yeah, so Tony gets to see some of the where the drugs are produced and such, and he's stepping up in the world. He's going from being like a kind of low level distributor to he's getting involved in the bigger action, the bigger money, more risk, and more criminal enterprise. And I love these blow up scenes here. I'm seeing the widescreen formats used so well for these scenes, like the beautiful film to watch on a cinema screen or on a big Blu-ray on your TV or whatever. I mean, here you got all the cityscape in the background, Michelle Pfeiffer in her swimsuit, of course, the white suits and the pool and everything so glamorous and yet decadent at the same time. It's beautiful and colorful, like the colorfuls and colors rather of like Miami and Cuba, but it's also kind of soulless. It's all drug money. It's all just soulless, empty shit, just possessions and crap.
That's right. And funny that you should mention that because there's definitely a difference in the type of wealth displayed by guys like Frank and Tony and those type of guys in Miami compared to Sosa in Bolivia. Like Sosa's
Yeah,
place is really it's almost like a royal palace. It's like palatial and it's really kind of
yeah,
grand. Um, whereas like Tony and Frank, even though they live in these like big mansions and these like houses and stuff, everything looks very kind of like you said, it's very soulless and very tacky and just kind of it's expensive stuff, but there's no. It's like you said, it's like it's all just like stuff you buy with your drug money is on there. Whereas with Sosa, there's something a little bit different. You get the feeling that this guy is part of a dynasty of like almost like an empire of a family that has
yeah,
run the country. He's almost royalty. And when when they're doing this deal or they're trying to do this deal with Sosa, they were originally sent over just to buy 100 teased or something, but Sosa's like, no, I want to supply at least like, 200,000 a month or some mad, like he's got some really like high figure or like high level of stuff he wants to move. And Omar is like, well, I can't approve that type of deal. I'd have to go talk to Frank. Whereas Tony's like, hey, why do we have to go talk to Frank? Let's just talk about this now. We can talk to Frank later. And him and Omar, more or less end up having like an argument right in front of Sosa. And you can kind of see that Sosa is really paying attention to how the two of them are interacting with each other. And while this is all going on, Sosa gets a tap on his shoulder from his assistant who asked him to come in to take a phone call. And we see Sosa on the phone. He's kind of looking out and he's looking out the window and he's looking at Omar. And next thing he kind of comes back and he's like, oh, look, gentlemen, I think you're right. Maybe you should go talk to Frank about this deal. My associates will take you in the helicopter and bring you to the airport and you can get the flight back to Miami. And just as the two of them are walking away, Sosa grabs Tony by the arm and he says, look, you know what? I want Tony to stay with me and continue the discussion. And Omar, you can just continue on there and go to Miami and, talk to Frank. So you can kind of see Omar, he just kind of has this look in his face, like he doesn't really know what's going on. And he feels a bit iffy about it, but he goes ahead anyway. He gets on the helicopter. And then a couple of minutes later, as Sosa and Tony are having their discussion, Sosa's like, "Oh, Tony, I like you. You seem like an honest guy, but I can't say the same about your friend that you've traveled here with." And then he hands Tony a pair of binoculars, so Tony can look up and see Omar being pushed out of the helicopter. He's just gotten onto with a noose around his neck and being hung, which is another pretty brutal scene because I mean, you really whatever they've obviously used like some type of dummy, but it's like weighted because you can really see the limbs, like
Yeah.
kind of like it looks like like what you would expect to look like if a person got hung from a
But
helicopter.
Tony sees this, and a regular person will be like, "Holy shit!" and freak out. He looks at it like it's just another fucking Wednesday.
Yeah. And look, Sosa explains to him. He goes, "Look, my associate identified that Omar, who you arrived at, was once an informant for the police, and that he put a lot of people that they knew away behind bars. So that's why he's been whacked." And he more or less says, "Look, Tony, you seem like a decent guy, but I don't know if I can trust the organization you work for because if your boss Frank had somebody like that working for him, how do I know he doesn't have other informers and guys like that on the
Yeah,
payroll that he doesn't even know about?"
and that's a
And
very
Tony's like,
real thing too that comes up in a lot of the Miami Vice TV episodes too, as well as real life. Is that you had um, these drug barons in South America, and you had their representatives and people in Miami, and you had FBI and other law enforcement that would go undercover and get involved. And some of these guys would flip and turn and just like get into the drugs and the money, and they'd be like, "Fuck law enforcement." They're just part of the whole enterprise, and you never knew whether were they going back to the law enforcement side or were they going to stay on the drug cartel side? And it was a very real thing.
and we got a little taste of that in this movie shortly as well, with some crooked law enforcement involvement. But so yeah, look, Sosa just more or less he lets Tony know. He goes, "I only tell you this one time. Don't fuck me, Tony. Don't you ever try and fuck me," which is which is a great line. And so Tony goes back to Miami. He goes and has a meeting with Frank. He tells Frank, "Look, Omar was an informer. That's why he's gone. And I think we should put together this big deal with Sosa." And Frank, who, by the way, he's played by Robert Loggia, who's a brilliant actor, and he's a great character in this movie as well.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Frank, he kind of he looks at Tony and he's like, well, why should I believe that Omar, was a stooge just because Sosa said so? Like that could just be, that could just be what he's saying. And then he also points out, what's going to happen to us if we make this deal with Sosa, and then all of a sudden 1 month we can't come up with the money, because we're
Yeah,
talking about
then you're in
millions
trouble.
and millions of
Then you're in the
dollars here.
Breaking Bad situation.
Yeah. And he even says, he says to Tony, it's like, he's not going to send you a bill. He's going to send a hit squad up here, and there'll be a war
Yeah.
on the street. So even Frank could see the writing on the wall, even back here. He's like, you don't want to get involved with this guy. Like, it's not, you don't want to get in on this level. It's too much. But Tony, he's having none of it. He's just more or less dismissing everything he says, and he more or less tells Frank, look, like Frank wants him to stop the deal with Sosa, whereas Tony, he'll do what Frank says, but he also lets him know, like, I'm not happy about this whole situation, and he's really kind of showing that he's on the verge of rebelling against Frank, and he's making it pretty obvious. And he even goes as far as, like, literally he comes out of that meeting and then goes straight to Frank's house where Elvira is, and more or less just starts flirting with her by the pool, sitting down, drinking with each other. Totally doesn't give a shit if Frank's going to arrive home or not and see him. He's kind of way beyond that now. He's just like, he
Yeah, he's
wants
got the
what he
cojones,
wants.
man. Those
He's
cojones are
got
coming out.
cojones. And as he tells Elvira, he's like, first time I lay eyes on you, she's a tiger. She belonged to me. So that's all he cares about. That's all he wants. So anyway, she's giving him the usual look. What would Frank do if he found out? I don't think this is a good idea. So once again, Tony kind of backs off with his tail in between his legs, as far as kind of trying to score with Elvira. But we cut back to the club, and Tony's there with Manny. They're having a chat about how things went, and all of a sudden we're introduced to the character of Mel Burstein. He's a narcotics cop, and he's come to the club pretty much to shake down Tony. He's like, look, word on the street is that you're making a lot of moves, and just to let you know, unless you want to get busted, you better start, you know, giving us some money. Basically, like he's going to have to bribe him.
Mhm.
And Tony is kind of he's like, well, like, I haven't done anything that you're aware of. Like, you're hearing this stuff, but you can't actually get me on anything. And then the guy's like, well, what about this guy Ravanga that you killed in the camp? And what about these Colombians that you killed during that botched deal? So all of a sudden, Tony knows that this guy is being fed information, by somebody, and it doesn't take him long to kind of come to the conclusion that Frank must have tipped off this cop to Tony, doing those murders and doing things. So now he kind of has this over him, and yeah, so Tony, he's not pleased about the whole situation at all. And to add to his woes, while all this is going on in the club, he's also watching the dance floor where he can see his sister Gina dancing with a man, and he's not pleased
Not
about
happy.
her dancing with a man at all. And at one point, he even sees him put his hands on her arse, which really fucking pisses him off.
Yeah.
He gets pretty angry. So he's distracted by all this, and he's trying to kind of talk to the cop at the same time, and his mind is just going in a million directions. And he even has a bit of a kerfuffle with Frank, who's also in the club, having drinks with Elvira, and he makes a bit of a scene, and you can just tell that shit's going south with him and Frank real fast, and things are about to break down really quickly. On top of all this as well, he notices that the sleazy dude, I think his name's Eduardo, has brought his sister into the men's toilets and kind of brought her into a cubicle to get up to some no
And the
good.
sister wanted to go in there. It was consensual, but Tony's like
Yes.
jealous and paranoid.
Yeah, so he follows her in, kicks open the door, drags the guy out, fucking throws him out of the club, gives out shit to Gina for going into the toilets with the dude, and she gives him a bit of lip back, so he smacks her. So we see there's like that relationship's already getting really intense and crazy. So the whole situation boils over. Manny decides to bring her home. Um, And we're left in the club with Tony, who's getting more and more drunk as the night goes on, and he's watching this comedian kind of doing his set, and he looks like he's nearly
Oh,
kind of
Belzer,
dozing
who
off.
got choked out by Hogan.
That's right. That's right. And
If he wasn't
we
doing
get
so
like a
much cocaine,
musical.
he probably wouldn't have passed out that quick. that's the theory.
Yeah, the oxygen got cut off to his brain too quickly from all that coke.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got a nice little musical interlude of this like clown dancing while the two most conspicuous hitmen in the world enter the club.
Yeah.
Two most serious looking dudes ever on the planet are eyeballing Tony. They both have submachine guns under the table.
The only way to be more
You know,
conspicuous if they sit there with like false arm casts and maybe like wooden dummies like Scarface or something. They're just like so obviously like, oh, I'm hiding something.
like they're both sitting there like this with their arm on the table covering a napkin.
Yeah.
It's like, what could you
Yeah.
possibly be doing there? But so
Like that lady in
anyway,
the chainsaw scene had a gun under the pillow. These guys are sitting there hiding
yes.
their guns. A pretty obvious sight.
So they attempt to whack Tony. It does not go well. They miss all their shots. He manages to take both of them out and escape. Now, I think they did clip him on the arm. He gets hit in the arm, but they don't manage to
Yeah, he
kill
gets
him.
clipped.
So he gets out of there and he meets up with Chi-Chi and the guys. And at this point, he's pretty convinced that Frank has just tried to have him killed. So he tells Chi-Chi, he goes, look, I want you to call Frank's office at exactly 3 a.m. and I want you to say the following. He says, I want you to say this. We fucked up. We didn't get him. So then he drives over to Frank's place. Frank is sitting there with Mel, the crooked cop, and, Ernie, his assistant, and they're drinking and they're laughing. Next thing he turns around, sees Tony standing there all bloodied up, holding a gun. And
This
Tony's
scene
like,
goes for several minutes where Tony's holding a gun on them, and they just keep talking to them real casual, like they're like, "Oh yeah, he's not going to shoot us." I'm like, "Fuck, it is."
Oh, he fucking is. He fucking is. Because it's like 4 or 5 minutes in or whatever before Frank's like, what's with the gun, Tony?
It's like just like every day, like he just has a gun out when they're having a talk.
But yeah, so Tony's like, look, he accuses Frank basically of sending the dudes to whack him, and Frank's trying to deny everything. And no, it wasn't me. It must be, the Diaz brothers or Casper Gomez or some of these other guys. But Tony's having none of it. And next thing, the phone rings, and it's the guy ringing to say to Frank, "Oh, we fucked up. We didn't get him."
I love.
And Frank, though, he's pretending it's Elvira on the phone, and she just wants him to come home. So Tony knows then straight away, oh, this lying motherfucker, like it definitely was him who set me up. So look, he's gonna kill Frank, and Frank begs him. He's like, don't kill me. And Tony's like, it's okay, Frank. I'm not gonna kill you. Manny, shoot this piece of shit. So Manny just comes over and shoots him.
I'm going to kill you much.
Then we have yeah. But then we've this great. I just love this moment because we've got Mel, the crooked cop, sitting there. He's got his arms folded because he thinks like, well, I'm going to be fine because like I'm a cop.
Yeah, he won't shoot me.
And he's like, Frank fucked up, and Tony's like, you too, Mel, you fucked up. And then he just pops someone right in the gut. And Mel's like, what?
It's real Western
so
style. They're just sitting there. It's like shooting someone across the table playing cards.
Just looks so painful. Like he gets him right in the gut, and Mel's like, "You can't shoot a cop," and Tony's like, "Whoever says you was one?" And then just gets him right in the chest. So it's a pretty brutal death for Frank and Mel.
Oh yeah.
And Tony he goes round to Frank's house. He wakes up Elvira. He's like, "Look, Frank's gone now. You're coming with me." He's looking out the window and he sees the blimp fly past with that, famous.
It's very ominous. The world is yours. That became like a tagline.
The world is yours.
This movie. They also named the PlayStation 2 game on Scarface "The World Is Yours" after that as well.
That's right. Andy has it on his statue in the main hallway.
Yeah, that statue. Which he did. He sees it somewhere when they're going out looking at stuff, and like he has it in his mansion, but they do see it somewhere in public where he gets another copy or whatever it is. You do actually see it earlier in the film in one scene. So he's seen it and gone, "Yep, I want that. Need that in my mansion." But the money is rolling in. It's rolling in the Benjamins.
Yeah, we get the best, and I like, it's my favorite anyway. It's my favorite movie montage is this Push It to the Limit Scarface montage.
You don't say,
of seeing all
because
that money.
we have a little break coming up just here, coincidentally, so I can see a man about a horse. So I'm going to play the break. Sorry, goes for about 3 minutes, and then we'll be right back into the next scene.
Now can't you see? Oh, sing it up tonight. Sing it up all night. Sing it up tonight. Tell me that you love me. Tell me that you stay the night. Now I'm gonna tell you one more time. I've got to have you every day. How could I live without your love? Don't be mistaken by the first impression, and watch out for that innocent expression. Take her, she's not what she seems. Don't wait in the dream, 'cause when she breaks away from the child, then the woman runs wild. So
Oops, I accidentally ended early.
I love the music in this movie, man. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, but it was coming up to the other song that you mentioned. But
I will actually.
Normally
I will mention.
normally I save it into StreamYard, but this time I tried the file was too big, so I tried play it as another clip. So that's why I couldn't. It ended early by accident. But it's still on my YouTube channel anyway. The full version of it.
One thing I'll say, I know we will be talking about GTA Vice City next week,
Yeah,
but I
old
will just
soundtrack.
mention now, because we got that nice musical interlude there, all the main pop music from this movie also is in Grand Theft Auto 3, the video game. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
So before Vice City, there was Grand Theft Auto 3, and
Yeah.
it has a radio station called Flashback FM,
Yeah,
and all the tracks on Flashback FM are actually the Scarface soundtrack.
yeah.
I
I
always
love
thought that
the
was pretty
Scarface
cool.
soundtrack and how they used it in GTA. It's awesome.
Yeah, brilliant music. And like I said,
I'm
that
annoyed.
whole,
I'm annoyed. I accidentally clicked it out because the third piece that went to the third piece of music is my favorite one.
was that going to be Push It to the Limit? Was that going to be
Yeah,
that
it's pushed it
one,
to
or-
the limit. So shall I
Yeah.
play it again? Shall I play it again?
Yeah, go ahead, do it.
Fuck it, let's play it because I want to push it. I won't click
I wanna
anything
push it
else
to
to
the
that.
limit.
she's on fire. Won't you burn through the night at the speed of light? She's on fire with the heat of the beat right beneath her feet. She's on fire, and the name of the game is to fuel her flame. She's on fire, 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 fire.
You'd be looking for her, man. Not really.
Gosh, my sister, man. when it goes to the bit where he has that tiger at the wedding, I'm like, that's when I know he's fucking lost it, man. It's like that's literally beyond the point of no return. When he's got the giant painting of him and the gangster mole he's stolen from the guy he's just murdered. He's got a tiger chained up in his mansion.
Yeah, I wonder did that tiger. I'm sure that tiger got some impromptu meals from guys who owed Tony money over the months. You know,
I
feed
love
him to
the
the
colors
tiger,
here
man.
when he's when he's redone this mansion here. It's got the gold and black. It's so tacky and decadent, but it does look kind of kick-ass.
Getting the visit from the bank manager who we saw during the montage, because Tony's moving so much cash that it's getting very hard to actually put it through the system
Yeah,
legally.
you saw in that clip all the big bags they're carrying into the bank.
And the bank manager's more or less like, look, if you want us to continue taking your money, we're going to have to raise the rates because, you know, we got the IRS breathing down our necks. We got all sorts of
Yeah.
people looking
You
at what's
need
going
more of
on.
the need more money laundering legit businesses to funnel the money through.
But Tony, you know, he's having none of it. He just thinks the guy is trying to break his balls and get more money out of him. And it's around this time as well that Manny floats the idea of a guy that he knows, another contact by the name of Seidelbaum, who can essentially rinse the money for them at a much lower rate, and so they'll get more bang for their buck, so to speak. But Tony, you know, he hears this guy is like a mob guy and he doesn't trust mob guys, so he's just not sure what to do. But there is that idea planted that, you know, he may have to switch banks, for want of a better term, and you know, do business with somebody else. At one point, he's even speculating on possibly just flying the money to the Bahamas himself, but you know, he later decides against that.
I also love in the sort of set decoration here, we've got this bank of monitors, which are security cameras set up around the perimeter of his mansion, which is practical, really, if you have a big property to have security cameras. But it's also like an external manifestation of his paranoid tendencies. Like he's got all this wealth and stuff, but he's paranoid about someone coming after him or something taking away from him. And I do like that he has in his we'll see coming up soon, this big crazy bubble bath tub. He's a Sony TV, but the monitors are Sanyo. So I like seeing the little products, whatever they are. You know, they're real monitors. Are actually that brand in the film, not bullshit made up ones.
And yeah, like you said, it's his paranoia physically manifesting itself. And even Manny, I think, around this time makes the remark to him that, you know, we spend like 10% of our profits on security. Yeah. Like, you know, why do we spend so much of our money on this kind of counter surveillance?
Well, you should have security, but don't spend all your time sniffing all your fucking products for you because it makes you more paranoid.
Well, that's the great irony of the situation, is because, as look, without spoiling too much, we're going to get to it later on, but all his surveillance is for nothing later because he's so fucking high. He's not even looking at the screens when, you know, shit's really going down right outside his door. So, you know, unless you're of a sound mind and body, all the security technology in the world isn't going to save you.
In addition to all the guys that were standing around apparently doing nothing, they pay for security. It should have someone just who's the head of the security to monitor this stuff and be like, by the way, Tony, shit's going down. You might want to do something.
But yeah, so he's in his, like you said, he's got his big kind of fuck off jacuzzi bathtub thing. He's got his Sony and his
so
Sanyo.
Insanely big. Look at it, man. You could fit like 20 people in there.
But he's in a really, really bad mood, Tony. He's complaining about the bank charging him so much money. He's complaining about Elvira. He's like, you know, all she does is take drugs and sleep. He's just pissed off with her. She's pissed off with him. She storms off, and he calls Manny over and he's like, look, I think we will go with the Seidelbaum fella to arrange to wash the money, to launder the money. But, you know, I don't want you to be the one handling it, Manny. I'm going to be the one who's going to be handling it and you know, arranging the deal there. And this kind of pisses Manny off as well. He's like, you know, like, what the fuck? I'm your partner. And Tony's like, no, you're my junior partner, and I'm the one who's going to be making the deal there. So that's exactly what Tony does. He goes, he meets with these dodgy guys, and we get, lots of machine counting money, and the machine is given one
I
figure,
love
but
seeing the machine
he
counting
has
the
a
money.
different figure. I love seeing all those dollars being counted in the machine. I'd love to own all those
Just once
dollars.
I'd like to have enough dollars to put in one of those machines and enough dollars to buy the
And,
machine to put the dollars in it.
and just put the same amount through over and over again.
Yeah,
And
just put
pretend
over and
they're
over.
really rich. But yeah, they're counting up the money. They're literally there for hours because Tony keeps on arguing with the machine and arguing with the subtotals and making them recount the money and this and that. And the guy is like, okay, so after he's kind of washed through the money, he's like, who do we write out the check to? And Tony's like, you write the check to the Montana Realty Corporation and all this stuff. And then next thing you know, there's a big bust. The guy who's been counting the money pulls a gun on them, and so does the other guy who's in the room pulls a gun. Cops bust in because they are officers on undercover duty, and they're
I
arresting
love these
Tony
guys
for.
busting in because whenever they bust in these movies and 80s shows, they're always doing these squats. They're always doing these big squats when they got the gun. Like they can't stand up and do the gun. You got to do a big squat.
We also we do get a nice little line from one of the cops who is obviously Cuban himself, because he was their like undercover contact or whatever. But he turns to Tony and says, like, you call yourself a Cuban, you're a disgrace to all Cubans. So I guess that's a bit of an on-screen acknowledgement as well that there are good Cubans out
Yeah.
there. They're not all these like, we're not trying to present them all as these like criminals and gangsters. But so Tony gets arrested, and straight after we get this brilliant scene where Tony and Manny are having a meeting with Tony's lawyer, and Tony's lawyer is like, look, you can write me this check for 400 grand or whatever, and I'll make sure that you don't get done on all these charges for X, Y, and Z. He goes, but to be honest with you, they're just going to jail you for tax evasion. And Tony's like, oh, no, it's fine. I'm just going to give you now 800 grand and you can just bribe whoever. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Like, they've video footage of you counting $1.5 million. Like, there's no way you're going to get away from this. You're going to go to jail. And Tony's like, well, like, how long would I go to jail for? And the guy's like, well, the sentence would be 5 years, but maybe I could make a deal with them. I could get that down to 2 or 3. And Tony just can't handle this at all. He's like, there's no fucking way I'm going to jail. I'm not going back in a cage. He really just can't, he can't take it at all. But luckily, Sosa calls him to a meeting. So Tony travels to Bolivia, and Sosa brings him into a room with lots of powerful people. There's a powerful Bolivian general. There's like a secretary of state. There's like some guy who works in Washington for the government and just all these powerful people from all over the world. And he plays this video of a guy who's basically this like South American journalist, and he's exposing all the corruption in the government, and he's naming people like Sousa and these other people who are in the room and their connections to drug dealing and how they're just causing chaos all across the world, peddling their drugs. So Sosa basically puts it to Tony. He's like, look, we can make your problems in America go away. We can get people that we have contacts with in Washington to get rid of the charges for you. You won't have to do any jail time. You'll just have to pay a fine. The only thing is, we need you to whack this journalist. He's going to be coming to New York to do a speech, and we need you to whack him before he can deliver his speech. So as Sosa says to Tony, he goes, look, I'm going to be sending my guy with you. He doesn't really speak English and doesn't know the States, so all you have to do is really drive him around and let him do his thing. He'll take care of the hit. So,
And do you think, like, to me, I'm kind of like, this movie's in the same universe as Breaking Bad, because that's the guy. That's the guy you don't want to mess with in Breaking Bad in the wheelchair.
Yeah. But say Manny's in Breaking Bad as well, isn't he? He's like
Yeah.
Salamanca or whatever.
Is
So
he?
like
I
there's
didn't realize.
there's a few guys.
I
He's
definitely
young.
recognize
He's
this
young.
dude because he's in loads of films and stuff.
Yeah, there's a few Breaking Bad heads, I think.
And I feel
show up
like
in the-
chronologically it kind of follows on where he's an old man by the time we get Breaking Bad the Butcher, where he's young enough that it could have been the same guy, in this film here.
But before we actually even get to the hit, Tony goes out to dinner with Manny and Elvira, and Lucky's telling Manny, I have to go do a little job in New York, so you're going to be running things for a few days while I'm away. Elvira is kind of in a bad mood, and he starts picking a fight with her, and then he's like being really cruel to her, calling her like a dummy, and he's like, her womb is so polluted, man. I can't even have a little kid with her, and saying all this like really bad shit in front of everybody in the restaurant. So she loses the head with him. She storms off. Manny kind of leaves as well, and then it's just kind of Tony left there. He's really drunk, and he gives that kind of great speech of, say good night to the bad guy. Take a good look at me, and he's like, you need someone so you can point your fucking finger. He just goes on this complete rant in the restaurant and until he's kind of, calmly
Yeah, and he's
removed
like
from the
falling
place.
down drunk when he gets up, staggering around.
Yeah, he's all over the place. He's absolutely wasted.
I feel like
And
also when Sosa sends him on this bloody hit thing, I assume Tony must take that like a personal insult because he's building his way up, getting all his money, his wealth. He wants to be this little Miami gangster and have his own fucking empire. And now he's being like pushed back down the ladder, like go do a little fucking shitty job for me, like you're nobody again.
yeah, and knowing that he kind of has to do it as well because otherwise
Yeah,
he's
he has
looking
to.
at doing time. So yeah, we go to New York, and the night before, this guy gives a speech. Sosa's associate sneaks under his car. He plants a car bomb. So the next day, Tony and the crew are waiting outside the hotel for the guy to come and get into his car. The guy comes, he gets into his car, but then his wife and children also board the car. So all of a sudden we got a situation where there's like women and kids in the car, not just the guy that they were supposed to be doing the hit on. So Tony's really pissed off about this. He's like, I don't want to fucking kill any women or kids. Like, that's wrong. Like, that's too much. But Sosa's guy is like, no, we have to do it. Sosa told us this is what we have to do. This is what we have to do. So they're driving behind them in traffic. They need to stay within like 10 meters of the car because the guy needs to be able to activate the signal on the bomb to set it off. And the whole time, Tony, he's driving behind. He's like, this is so bad. This is so fucking bad. And he's like looking in, and you can see in the back of the car, the kids are like playing with each other and stuff. It's just like, it's really getting to him. So just as they're about close enough to activate the bomb, uh, Tony just says "fuck it," and he just takes out his gun and he blows Sousa's guy away. He just shoots him right through the head, and he's like, "Fuck you, we're not going to do this." So the hit's called off. No car bomb. Gets to they drive off. Tony goes to a payphone. He calls back to Miami to ask for Manny, but Manny's not there, which pisses him off. Then he asks if Elvira has called. She hasn't called. Then he's also told that his mother has called while he's away and that his sister is missing. So all of this shit's kind of happening, and he's not even in Miami. He's just hearing it all on the phone. So he rushes back to Miami to see what the situation is, and there's just a whole shit storm going on. He had to talk to Sosa about why the hit was botched. Sosa is not fucking happy at all about that.
No, he's not happy.
He goes round to his mother's house to see what the situation is with Gina. She says that Gina took off a few days ago. She hasn't heard from her, but that she had followed her in the car when she took off originally and seen that she'd gone to this big fancy house. And she gives him the address of where the house is. He calls over, knocks on the door. Who answers the door but Manny? He's wearing a robe, and
Yep.
over his shoulder, who appears? Only Tony's sister's Gina, who's not wearing very much clothes at all. And this sends Tony into a fucking rage, and he just literally just pulls his gun out and point blank shoots Manny right in the gut, like proper gut shots him. And yeah, he's just lying there, dead at his feet while Gina's screaming, and she kind of looks up and says, "You know, Tony, we actually got married a few days ago. We were going to tell you. It was going to be a surprise for when you got back." So, well, he definitely
You
got a
kidnapped
surprise
us.
anyway. Yeah. So yeah, so Tony, he's just gunned down his best friend, who is also now the new husband of his sister, and he's also this whole time he's like totally whacked out of it as well. So Ernie and the other guy who's with him, they bundle him into the car. It's like, we have to get the fuck out of here, Tony. They bring Gina with them, and they just leave Manny there dead in his new house. And they whisk Tony and Gina back to the mansion where
Mansion full of drugs.
yeah, the mansion full of drugs, where things are slowly starting to really come crashing down, because I shouldn't say slowly starting, they're quite rapidly starting to come
Well,
crashing
that
down,
chair's
because
made of drugs, the carpet's made of drugs, the walls are made of drugs.
like, I don't know, like they're not even back in the mansion a few minutes when already we can see guys belonging to a hit squad are starting to stealthily scale the walls and hop over the
Yeah, when you've
fences.
got a grappling hook and you're going up like a walk on ninja, that's some serious business.
And you know, Tony, he's at his desk. He's got a fucking mountain of coke in front of him. He's so fucking whacked out of it. And the whole time, like, there's so many shots of him sitting there staring into the mountain of coke, and in the background in the camera
All
monitor,
those monitors.
you can see all this footage. There's like 50 guys running across like his garden that he doesn't even realize because he's got his back turned to the monitor. So like, one by one, these Bolivian hit squad guys are like picking off all of Tony's guards, or like coming up behind them and like strangling them and draining them in swimming pools. Like, they're not even firing guns. They're just like stealthily taking out his guys one at a time until they get very close to the house. And one guy got a grappling hook. He throws it up onto the balcony of Tony's office, and just as he's about to go in the window to whack Tony, he stops because he hears Gina coming into Tony's office, and she's got a gun. And
Yeah.
she's all like, "Oh, you want to fuck me, Tony? You want to fuck me now?" And she's like shooting the gun at him. And
And I have to wonder if she's done some cocaine at this point too, after all the bullshit that's gone on, if she's
I
off her
think
head or what.
she's definitely off her head. I think that Chi at one point mentions when they get her back home that they had to like tranquilize her or something. So she's definitely
Yeah.
on something. So anyway, she's taking shots at Tony, and while all this is going on, one of the hitmen jumps through the window with his machine gun and starts spraying, but he misses Tony. He hits Gina, killing her. This sends Tony into a rage. He like throws the guy out the window into the swimming pool, and then just unloads the entire clip of the machine gun into him while he's like lying in the swimming pool. And he's in bits over Gina. She's bleeding out. She's actually already dead, but he's still talking to her like
Yeah.
she's still alive, because he's just so, like, at this point he is just completely like fucking whacked, gone, completely out of it. So
It's very
total chaos
tragic
is
because
erupted.
he does care about his sister, but it's a really fucked up way that he cares about his sister.
Yeah. Oh, he's a fucked up guy, Tony. No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. And like, this whole like, all this fucking chaos is just completely going on around him, but he's just kind of holding her in her arms. She's bleeding. That's all he can think about. It's not until Chi, who up until this point had been kind of defending the mansion and kind of the main lobby, he's got like a submachine gun. He runs to the door of Tony's office, and he's like, "Tony, open the fucking door." He's like knocking on the door, but he gets shot and killed, and like, he's literally just sprayed up against the door. And this is something that Tony actually does see on the monitor. He sees the body of Chi kind of sliding down the door,
Yeah.
and like the blood all over the door. So this kind of like snaps him into action. And boy, does he get fucking snapped into action. He goes to the locker,
He's
he
got that
pulls out
wall of
his,
guns, which are kind of decorative, but they're all loaded.
yeah, because he's got that, the famous, it's like the Arnie Predator gun. It's like the M16 with the underslung grenade launcher
Yeah,
attached to it. So he
that's
loads
it.
that up. He's got loads of like fucking double mags. He's got like the fucking grenades stuffed in his pockets, and he utters the famous line, "Say hello to my little friend," and he just fucking launches that grenade right through the door. And man, he goes to fucking town on these guys. Like, he comes out into that lobby and he is like unloading the fucking clip. He is just spraying, and he's taking hits as
And
well.
then
Like, they're
throwing,
getting hits in on him here and there. He's getting clipped in the shoulder, clipped in the arm, but he just still keeps going, and he kills fucking loads of them. He actually kills. It feels like he kills nearly like at least half of the overall force that
yeah.
came to
Well, they're kind of
actually
lining
take
up
him out.
downstairs and running up the stairs, and they're fucking killing ground.
Then, of course, you know, not forgetting that he's totally fucking coked out of his head, he starts getting really cocky, and he's like, "Oh, you
If he
know,
hadn't been coked out of
look
his
at you
head, he
now."
probably wouldn't have been as successful in killing those guys. Just like
Yeah,
that
he
movie with
probably would.
Denzel Washington, where he flew the plane upside down, that was based on a real guy that was on coke that flew a plane upside down.
I suppose, like, he definitely would have been feeling a lot more pain from those bullets hitting off him
Yeah.
if he wasn't so fucking coked out of it. But yeah, he's getting real cocky. He's like, "Look at you now, you know, you can't take me. You know, when you deal with me, you're dealing with the best." And he's really cocky and, like, you know, daring them to come at him. And anytime anybody kind of sticks their head out, he's like shooting them. But the whole time this is going on, the serious looking individual we saw earlier in Sosa's garden, the man with the sunglasses, he has been very silently making his way towards Tony this entire time. He climbed up the grappling hook the other assassin had left behind earlier, and he's silently walking behind Tony with a double barrel shotgun. And as soon as he gets
Oh,
right
fuck
up
with
to
my
Tony,
human rights, man.
yeah, man, point blank, right in the fucking back, he just blasts Tony.
And we
And
see this like close up of nearly 2 seconds of just that double barrel shotgun to really drive it home.
oh yeah, and man, like fucking hell, when Tony
And
hits
just like the
the
guy he chucked out the back of his fucking opposite net, now he's falling into a little pool in the front.
he's in the pool, man, and like the amount of blood that just like this is a really well done effect or whatever, because when he hits the water, you just see the blood splash mix with the water. It's
Yeah.
just done so perfectly, and you know, the camera pans out and pulls back, and we just see this complete kind of stream of chaos and destruction left behind as kind of the sunglasses hitman just kind of calmly walks down the stairs and walks past all the dead bodies, and we just see Tony floating in his pool of blood. And it's just it's some ending. It's a, an amazing ending to an amazing movie. He went out fighting, no doubt, no doubt
Oh
about
yeah.
it.
And in the credits, before we get to the actual credits roll, we get a dedication to Howard Hawks, who directed Scarface 1932, based on Al Capone, who they did get on tax evasion, of course. So it was a nice little reference earlier where they're mentioning about the taxes.
Yeah.
And Howard Hawks also directed some really kick-ass westerns with John Wayne, and also directed some other stuff, comedies, Marilyn Monroe, and other stuff. Amazing film director, worth watching any of his films, really. And we get a bunch of credits and amazing. We get both the soundtrack and I was confused with words. Film score and soundtrack. There's an awesome soundtrack to this film, as in like your pop songs, and there's an awesome film score as an original moody pieces of music with no dialogue or words that underscore the background of the scenes. And Giorgio Moroder did amazing work in this film. And honestly, I didn't even know it was Giorgio Moroder until this week when I was looking at the credits. And I've listened to heaps of his music from the 70s and stuff he's done collaborations with Daft Punk. I mean, Daft Punk basically wouldn't exist without Giorgio Moroder. He's inspired so many synth and digital artists in the modern era. And we also get this little text crawl here. It's a little bit of get out of jail free card, basically, as far as like we're not trying to paint anybody in a nasty light in this film. And it says Scarface is a fictional account of the activities of a small group of ruthless criminals. Remember at the start of the film, we had refugees, only a portion of which were these assholes. The characters do not represent the Cuban American community, and it would be erroneous and unfair to suggest that they do. The vast majority of Cuban Americans have demonstrated dedication, vitality, and enterprise that has enriched the American scene, which is very true and accurate. Like, this is a film about some fucking rich, entitled, scummy criminal assholes dressed up in suits, and we've got cool guns and beautifully shot film, and we get to see a little bit of the human part of early in the film, but as it goes on, we see what a fucking monster Tony Montana is. And like actually, like Gordon Gekko on Wall Street, this movie has been kind of falsely sort of lionized, or people have gone, well, this guy is kind of like a hero. I'm like, no, he's not. It's a film about don't be this fucking guy. Don't be this guy in real life. He's a complete piece of shit. You could wear the t-shirt or have the movie poster and the Blu-ray, that's fine, but don't actually be this person.
Yeah, don't be the guy who has like incestuous fucking desires towards his own sister, you know. But even apart from that, like like you said, and like don't get me wrong, he's the character in many ways. He's a likable character, especially at the beginning of the movie. He's got lots
He
of
is
kind of
charming.
funny lines and funny moments. He's quite charming, and yes, he does, I suppose, in some ways, like you know, he doesn't want to kill the family of the man they're sent to whack. So he does have
They
some
do make him
morals,
sympathetic
definitely.
in key scenes and moments.
Yeah, he has morals when it suits him, I guess, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said, nobody in this movie comes across as a saint apart from Tony's own mother. Like she's the only person who has any real kind of you know, purity about her. Nearly everybody else has some kind of form of badness in them. Even Gina, who seems to be quite innocent in the beginning of the movie, is very much kind of corrupted by the lifestyle and influence of Tony. Like she
Yeah.
is taking drugs later on herself and getting into
And
mischief.
maybe her life
So
wouldn't have been that bad with the friend before Tony fucking murdered him. He seemed to be actually care about her, you know.
yeah,
It's like, despite being a
that's right.
criminal, he cared about her. And
But you know, it's a series or a series of unfortunate events as well. Like if Tony hadn't been so greedy about his money going into the bank, then he wouldn't have been tempted by Manny's suggestion about going to the Seidelbaum guy to launder the money.
yeah.
And then even on
If they'd
top of
stuck with
that,
the low-level criminal enterprise, they could have done fine and flown below the radar and kept doing what they're doing. Because, I mean, okay, and a regular, let's say, lived in Perth or Melbourne or something, if you keep doing that shit for years on end, yeah, someone's going to catch up with you. But if you were like flying below the radar in fucking Miami, where it's just fucking demic in the 80s of this drug money fueling the entire goddamn city, you're going to be too low on the ladder. No one's going to give a fuck about you. If he didn't go that high up the ladder, no one would have given a shit about him or come after him. He could have stayed down there, made a shitload of money, and just kept on going. But you know, his greed and his avarice and ego just kept pushing him for more of everything all the way.
yeah, it was the greed. He could never just enjoy, you know, what he had. And
Yeah,
you know, like I was saying, he got greedy over that money, and he was so greedy that like it was Manny who originally suggested to launder the money through Seidelbaum, but Tony, like the original plan was for Manny to actually do that deal, but Tony insisted that he be the guy who go and do the deal when they're doing all the counting of the money and stuff. So if he hadn't been so
yeah,
insistent, he wouldn't have even been busted. It would have been Manny would have been the guy who got busted, which therefore would have stopped him from marrying Tony's sister. So it would have stopped
oh,
Tony
true.
from killing him. It
Yeah,
also would have stopped Tony from getting into the trouble with the tax man, and then he wouldn't have had to go and whack the dude on behalf of Sosa. So it's Tony's
yeah,
greed that
true.
has always caused all the trouble. Like it's him just being
And,
greedy that always causes the trouble.
and it really is greed in that abstract sense, like a psychological condition, because even as he goes on, it's not like the money really matters and the drugs really matter. It's just he's just got excess so much of everything. I mean, the whole film itself is a commentary on the excess of the 80s and that sort of style and thing. But it really does kind of show the psychological drama of him, that it's his character flaw. It doesn't really matter what he's doing. If he'd been doing something completely different, he probably still would have fucked up and still self-destructed. Even if he hadn't been a criminal and working in a regular life and regular career, he probably still would have self-destructed and fucked something else up. It's his flaws that like undo him more than anything else.
Time, big time. But what a performance though, and like
Oh yeah,
Pacino And not just
One of his
Pacino, like
very best
everybody,
performances.
like Michelle Pfeiffer, Robert Loggia, everybody really just nails their roles in this. Like the character work in it is just spot on, and it's so good. And it just all kind of comes together. And I know they were kind of worried. I know that I think it was like Dennis Hopper or somebody like that apparently went to see an
Yeah.
early screening of the movie and like fell asleep during it. He didn't think it was that good at
God,
all. And then like Pacino was getting really worried that everybody was going to fucking hate the movie, like, or think it was really
oh
boring. It's
no.
like, no, Dennis Hopper was just up late the night before, so he just didn't have the attention span for it.
Yeah, I do
But it's
like De
so good.
Palma films. He's made a bunch of good films, and then at some point kind of trailed off like a lot of directors do. And I don't know, it reminds me of like in his 70s, like Sam Peckinpah. Like he's very visceral, and the blood and realism of the violence on the screen, and kind of shakes up some of the film critics and audience of the times. Like, oh no, we're not used to seeing this. We're used to seeing like John Wayne westerns and bloodless war movies with no blood and no consequences to violence. But here it's very realistic, the consequences to everything that happens.
Oh yeah, I would probably go with Scarface, The Untouchables, and Carlito's Way would be
Oh
my
yeah,
top
I love
mafia
Carlito's
movies.
Way, which feels like it is a really cool, great kind of un not non-canonical follow up to this film, but as far as
Yeah,
the themes, it's a great follow up.
yeah. If Tony had maybe went to jail instead of being killed, you get the impression that he would have
Yeah,
had that Carlito's Way maybe type of lifestyle.
yeah. Well, Kaleto's Way, he's a much more sympathetic character. He's like a reformed sort of character, and I love that film. And in my mind, sometimes I still kind of merge elements of the two together because I've played Grand Theft Auto Vice City so much, and there's characters from both of that, including the Sean Penn frizzy
Yeah, the
haired
lawyer.
lawyer that's in Carlito's Way. And sometimes I think he's in Scarface, and I'm like, no, that's not the guy. He's in the other film.
Yeah, and then because Vice City pulls in elements from all of them, it messes with your
And
mind
Miami
even
Vice as
more.
well, and other
Yeah,
films,
yeah. It
and
just
you've
all
got old
becomes one.
uh the characters, and you got Tommy Vercetti is played by what's his
Ray
name that's
Liotta.
in Goodfellas.
Ray Liotta.
Yeah, and then his friend slash frenemy is played by the Ricardo Tubbs character.
That's
So
right.
there's lots. It's just like it really is like a mishmash melding of Miami Vice and Scarface and a whole bunch of other 80s stuff into one cohesive world, which we'll be talking about next week.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I might dust off the old PS2 and give it a quick run with all the cheats on, of course, just so I
Yeah,
can like breeze
yeah, have a
through
muck
and
about,
smash
see
them.
how clunky the old controls are.
Yeah, I have my save
Like,
file anyway. So
yeah,
look, I've got my
yeah,
mansion, I've
yeah,
got my helicopters, I got my Ferraris
yeah.
in the garage, like my
I've finished
chainsaw at the
that game
ready.
so many times and played it. Like there was a point in my life where I had that game and I played nothing but that game for like 12 months straight. So it's like I can remember just about everything in it without even. I mean, I'll be looking at some video this week for doing my images to build the slideshow on that. But like every mission, the bits of dialogue, the film references, like I probably know that game better than just about any other video game I've ever played.
No, I'm looking forward to it definitely. Roll on our Vice trilogy.
Yeah, the month of Miami and month of Vice and drugs. So we're doing Vice City next week, and following that week, we're going to be doing some more WrestleManias and basically do like pretty much doing a month of wrestling stuff. And we can do a couple of WrestleManias, and I'll check back with you in later weeks. We could do either 2 WrestleManias, 2 SummerSlams, or we could do WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. But let me know what your preference is. But basically, just a month of wrestling shit.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Count me in. Count
Well,
me
I
in.
guess we'll finish up there and say goodbye to the folks.
Take care, folks. Don't get high on your own supply. And, look, here, better yet, just don't do drugs and live meaningful and peaceful lives.
Yep, stay off the yo-yo
Oh.
and respect my human rights, man.
Like my human rights, man.